Gen Z doesn't necessarily feel that connection from the other generations that they want to learn from them. The millennial generation is kind of closed off and they don't really want to engage as much as I think Gen Z would like to. Gen X kind of takes on that parental leadership role where they are curious about Gen Z, and Gen Z I think is equally curious about them. But I think if the other generations were to really take the moment to listen and build that relationship with Gen Z, we would have that more unity connection.
What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Radical Middle Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Tommy Nixon. I'm here with my co-host.
Hey. Len.
Yeah, Len. I was going to let you say it. Yeah, Lenmarie Pascall.
Len.
So, of course, you know, I'm teasing her to bring that New York energy with us today. And we actually have a special guest with us today. We have Taitem, who's actually here. She's our intern right now.
Yes.
The UIWY.
Yes.
Right? And so we're really excited that you're here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And I literally asked her 15 minutes ago. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Here's what we're talking about today. We want to dive in to the conversations that we think leaders should be having today. And especially in our context, we're talking about, you know, kind of generation wars. So we have three different generations represented. Okay. So I am 45 years old. I'm at the end of, I was born in 1978, which I know seems ancient to some people in this podcast. I won't say who, right? But 1978, I'm at the end of Gen X. I definitely identify as that. I don't identify as like that, a millennial, or there's that weird kind of micro generation. So that's me. Taitem, how old are you?
Yeah.
What generation are you a part of?
I was born in 2003. I'm 20 years old. I'm a Gen Zer, very middle Gen Z. I'd say pretty stereotypical Gen Z.
Awesome.
But yeah.
We're glad you're here. So you don't
Yes.
find haters here, but we're going to talk about it. And then Len.
I didn't know that telling our age was a part of this.
Okay,
but
you don't have to say your age.
No. You go to my
Do
Instagram,
the math.
you can
What
find
year
my
were
age.
you born?
35, 89. So I'm an 80s baby. I
89.
just made it.
That was a good year.
It was a good year because I was born. I'm a millennial.
All right.
Yeah.
So Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, right? So what I've been seeing a lot of is kind of this back and forth, especially on socials about different generations. The thing that I Gen X is a funny one because you get crossed over a lot. We talked a lot about boomers, you know,
Yeah.
and then it just goes to millennials.
Yeah.
And we're like, honestly, we're not even salty about it. I'm just kind of like, yeah, no, who cares? We're like the lost generation anyway. We're like latchkey kids. Like our parents are the last generation that didn't really care. I don't know if you guys ever seen this, but when I was growing up, like there was a commercial that was like, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are right now? Like, how are you going to have a commercial, national commercial that was like, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids? That's how much our parents were like, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they're out doing something, right? So that whole deal changed into your parents and to your parents that are it's very different, right?
Yeah.
But if we're going to kind of reach this next generation, if we're going to engage in it, we really got to understand, well, how do we view each other? And then what's the tension for all three of our generations and what we think God actually has for us to do? Because I do think God's up to something, right?
Yeah.
And each of our generations have something to contribute to that. And I would love your guys' thoughts on that. So, Taitem, since you carry the whole voice for your entire generation. What is like for you, like, how do you, and, speak on behalf of your generation, but how do you like experience Gen X, Gen Z? You can talk about boomers if you want. And like, how do you think you and your generation really kind of views those generations?
Yeah, I would say Gen X for us right now is a lot of the people in those leadership roles that we have, like our teachers, pastors, and those kinds of things. And so I'd say Gen X is more who were like trained by and led by compared to millennials. And I remember even growing up, there was so much hate towards millennials and no one liked that generation. And so I feel like Gen Z was trying to redeem themselves from millennials. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but millennials were like, you don't want to be a
Oh yeah,
millennial. I don't know.
mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Every conference you went to, like in the Christian space, and outside, like even business spaces, it was all about how horrible millennials are and how not to be a millennial. But I do believe that millennials paved the way for Gen Zs to have the freedom that I believe that I actually really love Gen Z generation. The freedoms that I see Gen Zers, is that correct?
Yeah.
The freedom that I see that they have.
Now
I feel
you
like,
know when
Yeah.
you've crossed over.
but
When you're like,
I know. Because I
Am
feel
I
like
hip?
we,
Am I-
I know, because I think we were like on the cusp of different
Yeah.
things. Like we
Yeah.
weren't traditional. We didn't want to go to work. 9 to 5s wasn't like what we
Yeah.
aspired to. Like,
Yeah.
but now that's normative for your generation. Yeah, you know. So I feel like we paved the way. Like we got all the, like everyone came down on us, but now it's kind of normal. So now y'all are doing it, and you get to like just spread your wings and do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, our generation had it really hard. Thank you for saying that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was gonna bring it up, girl. I was waiting to say it. Oh, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely think, I don't know how much Gen Z really thinks about millennials and like considers them as that paving the way aspect. Because I think we were just trying to do anything that wasn't millennial type thing. But Gen X, it was like, okay, I see how they did this and how they did that. And we liked that, and kind of combining all of those and taking those elements, but then bringing it to our generation.
So here's what's funny to me is that when I actually didn't think about your generation like being fully led by Gen X, because in some ways, boomers are still holding on to a lot of control and power, and so we're just all like, okay, you know, oh, you're 80 and still, no, God's called you to another 5 years. Oh, no, okay, cool. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, so that's really interesting. It's interesting too that like you're like, yeah, you paved the way. I get, thanks.
Yeah,
like,
no,
you know,
no.
and that's how you see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there is a tension, I think, here with generations. Like, and you go back into history and you read, every generation is always looking at the generation coming behind and be like, sucking their teeth, like, oh, this generation's like da-da-da-da. It's just what it is. You know what I mean? But it feels like the radical middle of this is that tension is going, how do you correct the things, right? Like what you're saying, how do you correct the things that maybe the mistakes that were made, and then help that next generation take their place? And for us, like in the kingdom of God, like as we move forward towards like mission and what God's calling us to. So like for you guys, like how do you see that? Like what are some of those weaknesses? What are some of the things that needed to be fixed? You can speak from your side, from my generation and before, to your side of like, you know, millennials, like, hey, we just didn't want to be like this. What are those things? And then what do you think, what are some of the gifts of each of your generations to say, no, I think this is how God's using us in the kingdom of God?
Yeah, I think for millennials, what we were always pushing back on as Gen Z is just the like thinking that millennials were soft and they couldn't really handle much and that kind of thing. And so, and like there wasn't any, they weren't taking criticism well or handling any advice. And so I think Gen Z was open to receiving that criticism and also putting it onto other people and trying to really shape up a generation and not make a fool of ourselves in a way.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. What was your question? Yeah.
And then what's like what do you feel is like a strength of your generation?
Yeah.
Like what God's up to and doing?
Yeah, I think Gen Z is good at creating new ways to do the more traditional things that Gen X has established, and they've been that way for so long. And I'm sure Gen X thought they were doing the same thing with boomers and that kind of thing. No?
I know.
No.
We'll talk about it in a minute, but yeah, that's really interesting.
I think there's just a whole new wave of way churches are run and how, obviously Gen Z isn't necessarily in the leadership role of churches yet, but they're starting to create those roles for themselves with the way worship is run and speaking and all of those kinds of things. And so I can't necessarily say that I think some of it is good, all of it is great.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely lots of flaws in it just from a lack of understanding. And I think there's a clear way that things were done for obvious reasons. And not all of Gen Z has come to realize that. And they're like, oh, let me just do something completely different. Sure. But it's not always going to pan out and work out. So I think they're really striving to be different and create something new and get rid of those norms that are in the church that we have right now.
No, that's good. What about you, Lynn?
Yeah. So wait, I want to clarify something first. When I say paving the way, I don't mean like we literally like, I'm not talking about like civil rights. Like we came in and we changed the
Feels like it, though.
That's not what I meant.
I think that's what you're saying.
No. I was saying that we got a lot of criticism for doing things differently.
Yeah, you did.
And it was perceived as laziness, but it wasn't. It was just going against the norm, right? Like where if I think one of the biggest things for us that we were criticized about was the work. Like, oh, their work ethic. They don't want to come to work 9 to 5. Gen Zers don't either now. Which Gen Z is signing up for a job.
It's pretty normal.
But now it's normal. COVID happened and now everybody's like, oh my God, we have to figure it out. But millennials were onto that before, but we were called lazy for doing it.
Yeah.
We were called lazy for wanting to work from home. We were called lazy for wanting to take vacation. Like things like that, right? Because when I first started working, it wasn't celebrated to take vacation when I first got into the workforce. It was like, who worked the hardest, who excelled more. And I was a part of that and I did that. And then we just got tired. And we were like, yeah, this is not normal. And then we protested against that. So, so I think we got a bad rep and it was seen as laziness. COVID happened. And now all of a sudden it's celebrated to take a break. It's celebrated to do things differently. We were doing church differently, but then it was called seeker sensitive when we were doing it. It wasn't celebrated like, wow, they're breaking traditional norms. It was just, and there are seeker sensitive churches that I believe they took the extreme, right? But even in our space, millennials were trying to do things differently in church as well, and it was seen as a negative thing. So when I say pave the way, what I'm saying is we got the brunt of what y'all don't get now. So y'all get to do what you do now because we already got criticized for it. So now y'all get to do it in freedom. That's what I was saying. So that's what I think. I think when I think of millennials, I'm really proud of our generation. And there's a lot of millennials before my age, right? So they were doing it before me. Because I feel for that very reason, because we took the chance to do things differently despite the criticism we got for it, despite the fact that people didn't want to hire us because they had a perception of us even before we got there. I remember, and I think I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts, like being on jobs where I was running things, but being called like the intern. You know what I mean? And I think it has a lot to do with like gender, but also age and just that age group. Just not being affirmed for the gifts and the talents that we brought to the table that were very different from the norm and what was supposed to be the right way of doing things. So I don't know I think that I answered your question both. What I like about the other generations, like I said, I really love Gen Zs because they get to take for me things even further. My concern with Gen Zs is that from what I've seen, a lot of them are not slowing down a little bit to learn from other generations, to really like listen and process things. It's always like we could do it faster. Not always, but we could do it different. We could do it better. And I see that in every generation. I think it's just youth. I think, like when you're young, you think that you know it all. I was the same way. So that's my only caution. But I love what y'all are doing. Yeah. I can't keep up, but I love it. Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, I think when I think about the generations, the way I experience it is, which is funny to hear you guys talk about it. Cause I'm like, that's interesting. So for the boomer generation, right, that built all the stuff that, and all that no vacation stuff, you got to work hard. Like that all came from them. But I was just reading this whole article that talks about that actual generation is the first generation that is extremely narcissistic because there was a certain amount of stability after World War II that came with GI Bill, like all this kind of stuff. And depending on who you are and your ethnicity, your culture, but all the stuff, like it changed, right? It mattered. But they were like, so the idea of them working really hard, and now you have these grandparents that are like, I don't want to help you take care of your kids. This is about me. You know, it's really interesting when you start looking at it.
Yeah.
So they built all this stuff and they did incredible things. Our generation was just like skipped over because one, we were the lost generation that was just kind of like the whatever generation. Cause we were like, look, like all the wealth and stuff that you figured out, we're not gonna, like, it's not working out for us. And that was doubly sure for millennials. Yeah. Like you did all the college, you had the helicopter parents, you had all this stuff, and then it didn't work out. So then you had to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then got made fun of. And you know, it's like,
because we were trying to survive.
Like, man, what?
We were trying to
like,
figure it
this
out.
is really like weak. Like, you're weak. Just do it like this when you're making the case. Look, if I do it like this, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, so your whole context paradigm, but that felt very much skipped from Gen X. That's how I feel. Like,
okay.
I'm like, and it was the Gen X parents because of what they experienced that then helicopter parent you. That was like, no, you're the greatest, you're the best, you're the participation trophy. We did that because our childhood was like, my parents didn't know where I was at. There were, you know, there's all those things.
Yeah.
And like into your generation, that's like the antithesis of their generation where you're like, you know. So when I think about that, here's how I think about our generation. Gen X, what we need to do, and elder millennials, what I think you need to do, is the kingdom ethics of laying down your life, of giving away power, of being like Christ, is to go, look, man, we're a bridge generation. We're not going to see the promised land. We have to give up power now to your generation, to younger millennials, and just go, look, let's learn from before and stop building these empires, right? Mm-hmm. Even like empires in the likeness of the kingdom of God.
Yeah, for sure.
That God worked through. So you have big institutions, you have big denominations, you have all that kind of stuff. We basically can, like, once we get the baton, we basically already have to be thinking, how do we give this away? And I think that shift has to happen, and it has to happen for my generation for sure, since we're the ones in leadership. And then for your generation.
Yeah.
And then I do feel like, this is the elder in the room speaking, but then I feel like, yeah, your generation should then be like, okay, what can we learn from? Like, not just, because when I was your age, I was burn it down. Like, Rage Against the Machine, like, hey, burn it all down. As I got older, I'm like, there actually was some good stuff that we should probably keep. Like, that's actually good stuff.
Yeah.
So if we could hold that posture and not make the mistakes of before, right? Because even if you guys say with all your ingenuity, this is what I love about your generation, all your creativity, all your like, let's go get it. What if you build, like, then you just become the new boomers where you just build? I don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like, I wonder how that works.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's when I really look at it. And I love your generation. My kids are, right, actually in your generation, I'm a 17-year-old, right? And then I got Gen Alphas in my house too. Mm. So there's a definite, like there's, which I'm not sure about those kids.
Yeah.
Like Jace, my 6-year-old, I'm going like, dude, if we can keep anxiety away from you and all the, you know what I mean? Like all the stuff that screams that, like, you might just be like the greatest ever because they have all this stuff to
small possibilities.
Yeah, man. Like to work off of the stuff that your generation did, off of the things you guys are figuring out. I'm like, but I'm also like, you know, by the time we were here, we were supposed to be the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to, for those of you who are in different generations, like there was a show like in the
I know of them. I never watched it.
It was old when I was growing up, but it was in the 60s, right? The Jetsons were like, you had the Flintstones, which looked back, and then the Jetsons were like, this is what the future is going to be like. And it was literally based in the 2020s.
Yeah.
Like,
there should be flying cars right now.
So so then the idea was, oh, we're going to be so freed from work and all that. And we kind of are. And yet we have so much anxiety and stuff that it's dealing with. So, I mean, that's my take on it as like the radical middle piece from my generational kind of, but I'm really saying to these leaders, like, you've got to give away power. It's like one of the most Jesus things you can do. Like, how can you give it away? While sitting in like the CEO seat. But I'm like, dude, I'm only 45, right? But when I was your age, I felt like you're basically almost dead. You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? Like, so for you guys, how do you feel like what are the things that each generation needs to do so that the kingdom of God may advance? You feel what I'm saying? Like, what are the things that we need to like be aware of? That's my take on it. Would love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know. I don't think I know what every generation needs to do. I would say,
or what would you hope they would do? Because
Yeah.
you have to deal with it.
Yeah,
It's the world you get left, right?
Yeah, this is just a beautiful story in the Bible when Joshua is going into the promised land and all the old heads messed up, so they couldn't make it, but they still had something to do, right? They were
Yeah.
supposed to teach the younger ones, different things like the law and all the different things, so that when they get into the promised land, they would be able to flourish, right, in this new land.
Yeah.
So I think that we're at I wouldn't say it's a unique place, but I think we're in a beautiful time where we have, we're all so connected because of social media and all the things, that it would be beautiful if we would honor where each other is at and really learn from each other. I think a lot of us are doing a lot of talking, like the different generations, and a lot of defending and not a lot of learning. Because I think we all have different perspectives. Even in technology, we have different perspectives, right? My parents, they probably have more patience because they understood what it was like to like go to the market, come home, like make a meal from scratch, and like, when maybe my generation and younger, we are more used to like microwaves. I remember not having a microwave in my home. I remember having dial-up internet. I remember having those phones where you had to turn it all the way, right? So I have two of those things, right? I was the bridge kind of to in technology in that way. But I think there's so much to learn from just the different ways that we've all experienced life. I don't know what it was like to be raised having things at my fingertips and to have information at my fingertips. So that's something that I can learn, my brain doesn't necessarily think, oh, let me just look it up. Or like even engaging with AI now, I feel like there's so much that Gen Z could teach us of how to engage with technology well, instead of us saying, oh my gosh, that's literally the devil, or whatever else.
I mean, I do have a couple movies that I would recommend. Terminator, The Matrix. I'm just, there's just I got some thought. No, I'm just playing.
So yeah, just that we would listen. We're talking a lot. Even now, I'm talking a lot. But that we would listen more as different generations and really learn from each other, because we all have different perspectives of the way we experience life.
Yeah. I think like very similar to that, like just to learn from each other is super important. But I think Gen Z doesn't necessarily feel that connection from the other generations that they want to learn from them. I know just in workplaces, like the millennial generation is kind of closed off and they don't really want to engage as much as I think Gen Z would like to. Gen X kind of takes on that parental leadership role where they are curious about Gen Z, and Gen Z, I think, is equally curious about them. But I think if the other generations were to really take the moment to listen and build that relationship with Gen Z, we would have that more unity connection. And I just don't necessarily feel like that's always there. But yeah.
Do you feel like Gen Zs want that, like in general?
I think so, because I think they do recognize that they don't know everything, and that Gen X and millennials have a lot to offer, but it's not necessarily being given to them, and they're not necessarily going out and asking for it. But
Yeah, I think that's a really good one because there's like I've read these studies. I've read these studies on you. We've been studying you, but that are just like, hey, they want to be mentored.
Yeah.
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 And we got to really get over, man, millennials, and you guys actually started this whole thing, but Gen X, boomers, we got to get over like, and I've had these sentiments. So I'm like, I've got to get over. Dude, do you know how I was mentored? I got yelled at or I got fired or there was no like job training. It was like, hey, stupid, like figure it out,
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, and like, and that's how you got your stripes. And then you have this generation that's just like, well, I would like to do a good job at this. Can you please share with me?
Yeah.
And so we can't have it both ways. We're just like, you got to work really hard. And you're like, I am. I'm showing up every day. But I want to be good at this. Like, can you help me?
Yeah.
And we're all sitting over here sucking our teeth like, well, you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You're like, I just rewired or I just figured out AI and how to redo your whole thing. And it took me like a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, we should be using that ingenuity and that creativity. Like it's such a gift. I really do think like the generations are such a gift. And too, to be honest, like generation stuff wasn't really a thing. Like your guys are the most self-aware about generations. Like my kids are always like, there's like this awareness about their own generation. Yeah. Which the rest of us were like, huh?
It started with millennials because they gave us a hard time. I'm trying to tell y'all.
Yeah.
The mentorship thing too, like you just said. Please say thank you.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry.
I remember being in my 20s begging for mentors and the older generations just like, well, come to like my conference or come to like my church
for
or something.
$19.99.
Yeah. So anyway.
I think like they have ways that they mentor, but it's not necessarily the ways that Gen Z or millennials receive mentorship. And so there needs to be a meet in the middle of teach me what you have, but in a way that I can receive it well.
It is really, I think that could be the takeaway for today as you jump into the tension of this and you figure out if you're working with different generations, this is the thing is like, there's just got to be a lot of grace. And honestly, I would put that more on the older you are,
for sure,
the more it's on you.
For sure.
But your generation's got to own that too.
I'm thinking through that like we wanted these things so much that we have to now say, okay, we're at a place where we need to give it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we fought so hard that I feel like we're at a place where we're like, nah, I fought too. Like we're getting back to what we hated that y'all did. So maybe.
Okay. That was accusatory, but it wasn't me.
Y'all.
I like to blame the boomers.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we do.
No, yeah.
In the circle, but I'm an urban youth worker. So that's probably not, the best example. But yeah, I mentor Gen Z.
Well, I think, again, another like, honestly, when you bring in scripture and the way of Jesus in this is why it's so important. It's like, to give away something that you didn't fully receive, but that you received from the Lord, like, that's a big thing. Because we can all sit here and just be like, well, this is the big thing, the big argument. I didn't get that. Yeah. I had to. And you're like, yeah, but it was a different context. This is why your generations get slammed, because it's like, well, we didn't have to. I'm like, yeah, but that was a different, like, we're in a totally different context. Like the stuff that you guys all had to deal with, like we didn't have to deal with. I didn't have to shoot even things as simple as like getting into a fight. I did not have to worry about me getting into a fight with somebody and then that going on World Star.
Yeah.
And everybody watching me get my butt kicked.
Yeah, like that was a thing.
Like that wasn't. It was like, dude, you lost, you took your licks, and you just, okay.
Yeah.
The 10 people that were there saw that. Like, now it's like, oh, bro, you famous.
Yeah.
So
now you get famous for stuff like that. World Star was more like,
oh, yeah.
Like bullying.
Yeah.
Was my whole, like that.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
What were you? Take it home. Take us home.
Back to the ways of Jesus. Like, if you follow Christ, like, you've got to be able to, I think, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Say we're sorry.
Yeah.
And then give away power. Like, I think these are like some of the pillars of Christianity that just get left. And especially in the generation conversation. I'm just like, well, Because honestly, like, we've got to be more mature so that I'm not like, well, I don't like how this generation didn't say thank you. Like,
that's
who
so
cares,
silly.
dude? Am I doing it for their thank you? No,
Yeah.
I'm doing it for the kingdom of God. It's elevated. Like, doesn't matter, man. Like, can we come back around and just go, okay, can I mentor you the way that you want to be mentored, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of Gen X and boomers, and we'll be like, let me get on the phone with you. And you're like, please
I don't want a
call
phone
me.
call.
Like, I just, right? So then it's like, then we give up. Like, I tried to mentor them and they just wouldn't take, like, okay, can we do it in maybe other ways where you can receive it?
Like, think of it as love language.
Yeah,
like
man.
love languages, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to love your partner the way that you want to be loved. You're going to learn them and learn how they receive love. It's the same thing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. With generations, learn how they interact and they receive love.
So, Taitem, we'll give you the final word. All right. What would you want us, like older generations, like some advice for us? What can we learn from you, right? Just to go, hey, here's some good ways to engage with us. This is what we actually want and need. And
I think definitely that mentorship role from Gen X, and really make it personal. And because we're such a digital age, it's not that we necessarily want everything in that form. We still like the in-person connections and meeting with people, and just the effort and listening to what we really have to say. And I think there's a lot of expectations from other generations that, you had everything at your fingertips, you grew up with technology, all those things. So they expect you to really be on it and know everything, when it's like, no, we still have a lot to learn, and it didn't necessarily solve all of our problems, just the digital age. And so I think just not lower the expectations of Gen Z, because still know that they can do great things and have good expectations of them, but just really meeting them where they're at and not the perception that you have of them. Because, just listening, really.
Well, there you have it, friends. Thank you so much, Taitem. Of course, thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Hey, we hope this is helpful for you guys out there as you engage with different generations and as you reflect on your own. And may we just take the ways of Jesus. Man, ask for forgiveness, say we're sorry, give power away. We'll see you guys on the next Radical Middle. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.